Commander Day stood on the bridge of the UES horizon, staring at the massive space station ahead. His reflection in the viewport showed a man in his early 40s, tired eyes hiding behind a calm expression. Behind him, the crew worked quietly at their stations, checking systems and preparing for the most important moment in human history. The station was called Concordia Prime. It hung in space like a silver wheel, so large that Earth could fit inside its central hub. Light sparkled across its surface like stars. Ships from a dozen different species moved around it in careful patterns. Day had seen pictures, but nothing prepared him for the real thing. "We're being hailed, Commander," said the communications officer. "The Galactic Council welcomes humanity." Day nodded. "Open a channel. Tell them we're honored to be here." Beside him, Ambassador Hana smoothed down her formal jacket. She was younger than Day, only 35, but Earth's government had chosen her for her brilliant mind and her gift for languages. She had spent 5 years learning the Council's main languages, preparing for this day. "Nervous?" Day asked quietly. Hana smiled, but her hands trembled slightly. "Terrified. We're about to meet aliens who've been traveling the stars for thousands of years. What if we say something wrong? What if we embarrass Earth?" "You won't," Day assured her. "You're the best diplomat we have." The horizon moved slowly toward the docking port. Through the viewport, Day could see the welcoming committee already waiting. Tall beings made of crystal that caught the light, creatures with too many limbs and skin that shifted colors, others that looked almost human but with subtle differences that made them strange. Captain Wu approached from the security station. He was a big man with sharp eyes that never stopped moving. "Sir, I've completed the security sweep. The station scans show no weapons pointed at us, but—" He hesitated. "But what?" Day asked. "Something feels wrong. The docking bay they assigned us is in the old section. The life support readings are acceptable, but barely. Meanwhile, all the Council species are docked in the newer, better-maintained areas." Day frowned. "Maybe it's just because we're new. They don't know us yet." "Maybe," Wu said, but he didn't sound convinced. The docking process took an hour. When the airlock finally opened, a blast of cold air rushed in. The atmosphere was breathable but smelled strange, like metal, and something else Day couldn't identify. The welcoming committee stood in a perfect line, waiting. Hana stepped forward first, as protocol demanded. Day and Wu followed 3 steps behind, with a small team of human diplomats and scientists. The lead ambassador was a Krell, one of the oldest species in the Council. It looked like a massive turtle with 6 eyes and skin covered in geometric patterns. When it spoke, a translator device turned its words into English. "Welcome, humans of Earth. We have waited long for this moment. The galaxy is richer with your presence." Hana bowed in the way she'd practiced. "Thank you, honored elder. Earth is grateful for this opportunity. We hope to learn from the wisdom of the Council and contribute what little we can to the galactic community." The Krell's eyes seemed to gleam. Such humility. How refreshing. The ceremony continued for hours. Speech after speech welcomed humanity. Each Council species presented gifts, artworks, cultural items, data crystals filled with information. Everything was formal and beautiful. Cameras recorded it all to send back to Earth, where billions watched and celebrated. But as the day went on, Day noticed small things that bothered him. The way the Council members spoke to each other in whispers when they thought humans weren't listening. The way they looked at the human delegation, studying them like scientists examining insects. The way servants, members of species Day didn't recognize, kept their eyes down and moved with fearful efficiency. During a break, Wu pulled Day aside. "I've been watching the station's traffic patterns. Do you know how many species are listed as Council members?" 12 elder species, Day answered. "That's what our briefing said." "Right. But the station computers list 54 different species that have been integrated into the Council. Where are they? Why aren't any of them part of the welcoming ceremony?" Day didn't have an answer. That evening, the Council held a grand banquet. The dining hall was enormous, with tables arranged by species. The human delegation sat at their own table, separated from everyone else by careful spacing. Food came in endless courses, each one stranger than the last. Some dishes were actually edible. Others were clearly meant for alien biologies. Hana was in her element, moving between tables and making conversation with various ambassadors. She laughed at jokes Day didn't understand, and asked questions about cultures humans had only just learned existed. She was perfect at her job, but then Day saw something that made his blood run cold. One of the crystalline Varathi had approached Hana while she stood alone near a fountain. The Varathi was smaller than the others, almost nervous. It leaned close and whispered something urgent. Hana's face went pale. Before Day could move, 3 larger Varathi appeared and surrounded the smaller one. They pulled it away quickly, crystals chiming with what sounded like angry words. One of them approached Hana and made apologetic gestures. Day reached Hana's side. What was that about? Hana looked shaken. That Varathi, they said their name was Sail, they said. She lowered her voice. They said humanity is the 43rd. That we must, and then they were dragged away. The other Varathi apologized and said Sael is mentally unstable. The 43rd what? I don't know. But Day, they looked terrified. Wu joined them, keeping his voice casual while his eyes scanned the room. We should report this to Earth Command. And tell them what? Day asked. That we got a cryptic warning from an alien who might be crazy? They'll tell us we're being paranoid. Earth is too excited about joining the galactic community. They won't want to hear doubts. The next day, formal negotiations began. The Council presented humanity with trade agreements, technology sharing programs, and cultural exchange initiatives. Everything sounded wonderful on the surface. Earth would share all its scientific knowledge and technological developments. In return, the Council would provide cultural guidance and administrative assistance. Day read through the documents carefully. The language was complex, buried in diplomatic terms, but the meaning was clear. Humanity would give up control of its own development. Every decision would need Council approval. Earth's military would be reorganized under Council oversight. Human colonies would be managed by Council administrators. This isn't a partnership, Day said to Hana privately. This is surrender. I know, Hana admitted. But Earth Command is ordering me to sign. They think we're getting the better end of the deal. They see advanced technology and peaceful cooperation. They don't see the chains. Then don't sign. If I refuse, they'll replace me with someone who will. At least if I sign, I can stay close and watch what happens next. The signing ceremony took place in the Council's main chamber. Cameras from Earth broadcast every moment. Hana placed her signature on the Concordance Treaty, binding humanity to Council law. The chamber erupted in applause from all the alien delegates. As Hana stepped back from the signing table, she noticed a data tablet on a nearby desk. It had been left open, probably by accident. On its screen was a list of names, species names. Next to each name was a symbol, a red circle with a line through it. Day saw it too, 42 names all marked. And at the bottom of the list, a new entry was being typed in real time. Humanity, integration phase initiated. Hana looked at Day. They both understood then, with awful clarity, that they had just signed away humanity's freedom. Earth thought they were joining a peaceful alliance, but the truth was darker. The galaxy had never wanted peace with humanity. It wanted something else entirely. The celebration continued around them, but Day felt only cold dread. Whatever happened next, humanity was in terrible danger, and nobody back home would believe them until it was too late. 15 months had passed since humanity signed the Concordance Treaty. On Earth, most people were happy with how things were going. Council technology had improved medical treatments. New power sources made energy cheap and clean. Alien advisors helped reorganize governments to be more efficient. The media called it the golden age of humanity, but Dr. Tay saw a different picture. He worked in Earth's intelligence division, analyzing data from across the solar system. His job was to look for patterns, and he had found one that terrified him. Tay sat in his small office surrounded by holographic screens showing information about the 42 species on that list. He had spent months tracking down every piece of data he could find. What he discovered kept him awake at night. The pattern was identical for every species. First contact, council invitation, treaty signing, technology exchange, then silence. The Varathi had joined the council 300 years ago. For 50 years after signing, they sent ambassadors, traded goods, and participated in galactic politics. Then they stopped. Council records said they were fully integrated members in good standing, but they no longer sent representatives. Their worlds were marked as under administrative development. The Nelm, the Kresh, the Tolomar. Every species on that list followed the same path. They joined the council, then slowly disappeared from galactic politics. None of them held council seats anymore. None sent ambassadors. They had simply vanished into the bureaucracy. Tay tried to find current population data for these species. The numbers were classified. He tried to access cultural broadcasts from their worlds. Nothing was available. He tried to schedule a call with representatives from any of the 42 species. His requests were denied due to administrative protocols. It was as if they had been erased. Tay knew he needed to share this information, but going through official channels would be useless. The council advisors now sat in every major Earth government office. They would block any report that made the council look bad. So Tay went directly to the two people he trusted most, Ambassador Hana and Commander Day. They met in a safe location, a small apartment in Seoul that Tay had checked for surveillance devices. Hana arrived first, looking tired. The past year had aged her. Dark circles shadowed her eyes and she had lost weight. Working closely with the council had worn her down. "You look terrible," Tay said bluntly. "Thanks," Hana replied with a weak smile. "You should see the council delegates. They never seem tired. I think they take turns sleeping while the rest of them keep making demands." Day arrived 10 minutes later, dressed in civilian clothes. He had been reassigned from the Horizon to Earth Defense Coordination. It sounded like a promotion, but really it meant the council wanted him where they could watch him. "This better be important," Day said. "I had to disable my comm device to come here. If anyone notices I'm offline for too long, they'll ask questions." "It's important," Tay assured him. He activated a portable projector and showed them everything he had found. The 42 species. The identical patterns. The missing data. The silence. Hana's face grew paler as she watched. "I knew something was wrong, but this is systematic. They're not integrating species. They're erasing them. But how?" Day asked. "There's been no violence, no wars. If the council was conquering these species, we'd have heard about it. That's what makes it so effective," Tay explained. "They don't conquer. They absorb. Look at what's already happening on Earth. Council advisors are in every government department. They're making our decisions for us, but they frame it as guidance. They're reorganizing our military under the excuse of standardization. They're taking control of our supply chains through the Galactic Trade Consortium. In another year, Earth won't be able to function without council approval for everything. And we're letting them do it," Hana said bitterly, "because it's peaceful. Because it's convenient. Because they're helping us." Day stood and paced the small room. "We need proof. Something solid we can show Earth's leaders. Something that will make them understand the danger." "I'm working on it," Tay said, "but the council is very careful. They classify everything important. Access is restricted, and anyone who asks too many questions gets reassigned or mysteriously develops health problems." Over the next 3 months, the three of them conducted a secret investigation. Tay used his intelligence access to dig deeper into council databases. Hana used her diplomatic position to observe council operations up close. Day used his military contacts to track unusual activities. What they found was worse than they imagined. The Nelm, it turned out, were telepathic. Not in a way humans had understood. They could subtly influence thoughts, plant suggestions, make people trust them without knowing why. Council advisors on Earth were mostly Nelm. That explained why. Earth's leaders were so eager to agree to every council proposal. The Vorathi's crystalline technology could rewrite digital information at a molecular level. They could change records, alter communications, and fake documents so perfectly that no human scanner could detect the forgery. That explained why the historical data about the 42 species was so sparse. The Krell possessed biological weapons that could target specific DNA structures. They could create diseases that would only affect one species, leaving others untouched. The weapons left no trace and looked like natural illness. That explained what happened to species that resisted too openly. Each council species had capabilities humanity had never been told about. Together, they formed a perfect system for absorbing younger civilizations without obvious force. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Nari was a pilot stationed at Mars' defense grid. She was young and aggressive, known for bending rules. During a routine patrol, she intercepted strange encrypted transmissions between council ships in the outer system. She knew she wasn't supposed to be listening, but curiosity got the better of her. She spent 2 weeks breaking the encryption, using techniques that would definitely get her court-martialed if anyone found out. When she finally decoded the messages, She couldn't believe what she was reading. The transmissions were between Council military coordinators, discussing Earth's harvest schedule. They referred to human population centers as resource zones. They discussed which human colonies would be processed first. They talked about Earth like it was a farm, and humans like they were crops. Nari immediately sent everything to Tai through a secure channel. Then she erased all evidence of her eavesdropping and went back to regular patrol duty, trying to act normal while her hands shook on the controls. Tai, Hana, and Day met again to review Nari's discovery. The evidence was undeniable now. The Council never intended peace. They were a hegemony that survived by absorbing younger species. They took their resources, their technology, their people. The elder species stayed powerful by feeding on emerging civilizations. Humanity was just the latest meal. "We have to tell Earth Command," Hana said. "Show them this evidence." "Make them understand. They won't believe us," Day said grimly. "The Nelm advisors will make sure of that. They'll say the transmissions are fake. They'll say we're paranoid. They'll have us removed from our positions." "Then what do?" Hana asked. "Just sit here and watch humanity get absorbed?" "No," Tay said quietly. "We go public. We leak everything to the media. Create enough noise that the Council can't cover it up." Before they could act, Hana was summoned to an urgent meeting with the Council's diplomatic corps. She went, trying to hide her fear, hoping they didn't know about the investigation. The meeting was held in a private chamber on Concordia Prime. All 12 Council elders were there, along with their senior advisors. Hana stood alone before them, feeling small and exposed. The Krell elder spoke first. "Ambassador Hana, we are aware that you and your colleagues have been conducting unauthorized investigations into Council operations." Hana's heart sank. They knew, of course they knew. The Council had been doing this for thousands of years. They probably had protocols for dealing with species that figured out the truth too soon. "We did nothing wrong," Hana said, forcing strength into her voice. "We were trying to understand the Council better. You broke security protocols. You accessed classified information. You intercepted military communications." The Krell's 6 eyes all focused on her. "These are serious violations. What are you going to do to humanity?" Hana demanded. "The 42 species before us, what happened to them?" "They were integrated," the Krell said calmly. "They became part of the Council family. They live comfortable lives under our guidance." "You mean they became slaves?" "Such an ugly word. We prefer to think of it as symbiosis. They provide resources and labor. We provide stability and protection. Everyone benefits, and if we refuse?" The Krell was silent for a long moment. Then it said, "Refusal would be unfortunate. We would prefer cooperation. Humanity has potential. Under proper management, your species could serve the Council for thousands of years. But if you choose resistance..." The elder made a gesture that might have been a shrug. "Well, there are ways to deal with that too. The Krell have extensive experience with biological solutions." It was a threat, clear and direct. "Submit or die." "I won't help you enslave my species," Hana said. "Then you are no longer useful as an ambassador." Earth exploded into chaos within 48 hours of Tay's leak. The recording of Hana's confrontation with the Council spread like wildfire across every network, every platform, every screen on the planet. People heard the Krell elder admit the truth. They heard the threats. They heard everything. Governments tried to contain the panic, but it was too late. The Council's carefully built image of peace and cooperation shattered in an instant. Protests erupted in every major city. People demanded answers. They demanded protection. They demanded that humanity withdraw from the Concordance Treaty immediately. The Council responded by tightening its grip. Council ships moved into Earth orbit, claiming it was for security purposes. Council advisors, no longer hiding their true role, began issuing direct orders to Earth's governments. The pretense of cooperation ended. The occupation began, but the Council had made a critical error. They assumed humans would submit like the 42 species before them. They assumed fear would break humanity's will. They were wrong. Day stood in an abandoned factory outside Beijing, surrounded by 300 people who refused to surrender. They were soldiers who deserted rather than follow Council commands. Scientists who fled research facilities before they could be forced to share their work. Engineers, pilots, hackers, and ordinary citizens who decided fighting was better than slavery. "Most of you know me," Day said. his voice carrying across the warehouse. I was the commander of the Horizon. I represented humanity at first contact. I shook hands with the council elders and believed their lies. He paused. I helped lead us into this trap. Now I'm going to help lead us out. A woman stepped forward. She was tall and muscular with gray streaks in her hair. I'm General Sung. I commanded Earth's Pacific Defense Fleet before I was ordered to hand over control to Council forces. I refused. They declared me a traitor. So here I am. Others introduced themselves. Pilots, soldiers, technical specialists. More arrived every hour. People who chose resistance over safety. The movement spread across Earth and the colonies. Humanity was preparing for war, but they faced impossible odds. The Council controlled superior technology, overwhelming numbers, and most of Earth's infrastructure. They had weapons humanity couldn't match and defenses humanity couldn't break. On paper, the war was already lost. That's why they needed people like Jin and Mina. Jin was an engineer who specialized in reverse engineering alien technology. He had been studying captured Council equipment for months looking for weaknesses. He stood before a group of resistance fighters holding up a small device. This is a Nelm neural interface, Jin explained. They use it to influence human thoughts. Makes you trust them, agree with them, even when logic says you shouldn't. It's been used on Earth's leaders for over a year now. How do we stop it? Someone asked. Jin smiled. I built a jammer. It's crude and gives you a terrible headache, but it blocks their telepathy. We can make thousands of them. Once people are free from Nelm influence, they'll see the truth. Mina was a biologist who had discovered something the Council never expected. She addressed a different group, her eyes gleaming with dangerous excitement. Human biology is a weapon, she announced. Earth's ecosystem is one of the most aggressive in the galaxy. Our bacteria, our viruses, they've been fighting each other for billions of years. Council species have weak immune systems because they've spent millennia in clean, controlled environments. What's a common cold to us could be lethal to them. You want to make biological weapons? Someone asked nervously. I want to level the playing field, Mina corrected. The Council has threatened to use bioweapons on us. Why shouldn't we do the same? Besides, we're not talking about extinction viruses. Just enough to make them sick, slow them down, force them to retreat. The resistance grew despite brutal Council crackdowns. Every day brought more volunteers. Every day brought new attacks on Council forces. Guerrilla cells across Earth and Mars conducted sabotage operations. They destroyed communication relays, attacked supply convoys, and freed humans from Council detention centers. The Council dispatched a peacekeeping fleet to Earth orbit, 200 warships designed to break humanity's spirit through overwhelming force. It was their standard protocol, and it had worked on 42 previous occasions. Captain Wu stood on the bridge of a retrofitted cargo hauler that had been turned into a makeshift warship. Around him, a fleet of 30 civilian ships prepared for battle. None of them were designed for combat. None of them stood a chance in a fair fight. This is suicide, his second-in-command said quietly. Probably, Wu agreed. But if we don't fight, we die slowly as slaves. At least this way, we go down fighting. The Battle of Luna began at dawn. The Council fleet approached Earth with absolute confidence. They had superior shields, superior weapons, and superior numbers. They expected quick victory. What they got was chaos. Wu's fleet didn't fight like trained military units. They fought like desperate survivors. Ships loaded with explosives drove straight at Council vessels on suicide runs. Others pretended to surrender, then detonated hidden bombs when Council forces boarded them. Human ships used Earth's orbital debris as weapons, launching satellites and space junk at high velocity. The Council fleet fought by rules, established tactics developed over thousands of years of warfare. Wu's fleet had no rules. They used every dirty trick, every desperate measure, every tactic that civilized species would consider dishonorable. Jin's team had installed jammers on every human ship, blocking Nelm telepathic coordination. Mina's biological weapons were deployed through breaching pods that cracked open Council ships and released modified pathogens. The infections weren't lethal, but they were debilitating. Council crews found themselves fighting while sick, weak, and demoralized. The battle lasted 3 days. Earth's makeshift fleet was nearly destroyed. Only 7 ships survived, but the Council fleet was devastated. 2/3 of their vessels were destroyed or disabled. The survivors retreated in disorder, something that hadn't happened in Council military history. More importantly, Tay broadcast the entire battle across every communication channel in the galaxy. The 42 integrated species watched as the newcomers refused to submit. They saw humanity fighting against impossible odds and surviving. On a distant world, in an integration center where the Vorathi people had been held for 3 centuries, a rebellion began. Vorathi workers stopped following orders. They sabotaged council facilities. They started asking dangerous questions. If humanity could fight back, why couldn't they? Similar uprisings sparked across council territory, small at first, work slowdowns, protests, minor acts of defiance. But the council had built their empire on the assumption that conquered species would stay conquered. They weren't prepared for coordinated resistance. Seo, the young Vorathi who had tried to warn Hana, managed to send a secret transmission to Earth. It was brief and encoded, but Tay decoded it within hours. "Other species want to fight," the message said. "We've been waiting for someone to show us it's possible. Humanity proved it's possible. We need help. We need leadership. We need you to teach us how to resist." Day gathered his core team, Sung, Wu, Jin, Mina, Tay, and others who had become leaders in the resistance. They met in an underground bunker beneath the ruins of Beijing, which had been bombed by council forces in retaliation for the Battle of Luna. "We have a choice," Tay said. "We can focus on defending Earth and hope we can hold out long enough for the council to give up. Or we can take the offensive, help other species resist, turn this into a galaxy-wide rebellion. We barely have enough resources to defend ourselves," Sung pointed out. "How can we possibly support uprisings on dozens of other worlds?" "We don't need to send armies," Tay said. "We need to send information. Teach them what we've learned. Share our tactics. Show them that resistance works. And we need to hit the council where it hurts," Wu added. "Their integration centers. Free the enslaved populations. Give them back their ability to fight." "It's a huge risk," Sung said. "We could overextend ourselves. Leave Earth vulnerable." "Earth is already vulnerable," Day replied. "The council has more ships, more weapons, more everything. We can't win by hiding. Our only chance is to make this so costly for them that they decide humanity isn't worth the effort. And the best way to do that is to inspire every species they've ever conquered to rise up at the same time." The vote was unanimous. Humanity would go on the offensive. Within weeks, human resistance fighters were making contact with rebel groups across council space. They shared blueprints for neural jammers. They shared tactics for guerrilla warfare. They shared Mina's biological countermeasures. Most importantly, they shared hope. The galaxy began to burn, not with the fire of council conquest, but with the fire of rebellion. Species that had been silent for centuries found their voices again. The council, which had ruled through fear and inevitability, suddenly faced resistance on 100 fronts. The elder species called emergency sessions. They had never dealt with anything like this. One rebellious species they could crush. But how did they fight when every conquered population was rising up at once? Dai received a transmission from an unexpected source. It was Hana. She was still alive, held in an integration center on a distant world. The war had been burning for 8 months. What started as Earth's desperate resistance had become a galaxy-wide insurgency. The Free Coalition, as they called themselves, was a loose alliance of humanity and remnants of the 42 conquered species. They had no central government, no unified military, just a shared determination to never submit to the council again. Day stood in the command center of what used to be a mining station in the asteroid belt. It now served as the coalition's main coordination hub. Holographic displays showed the state of the war across dozens of star systems. Most of the news was bad. The council controlled the majority of the galaxy's industrial capacity, resources, and military infrastructure. They could replace losses faster than the coalition could inflict them. Every coalition victory was paid for with terrible casualties. Every freed world was immediately threatened by council counterattacks, but they were still fighting. That alone was a victory the council had never expected. General Sung entered the command center, her uniform torn and stained with blood that wasn't hers. She had just returned from defending the Mars colonies against the Council's Third Fleet. The defense had succeeded, but barely. "We held Mars," Sung reported, "but we lost 60% of our defensive fleet. The Council is throwing everything at us now. They're not trying to integrate us anymore. They're trying to exterminate us." "They're scared," Tay said from his station. "Our intelligence shows the Council is fracturing." The elder species are blaming each other for the failure to contain the rebellion. 3 council members have already withdrawn their forces to defend their home territories. That's good news, Day said. But we still need a way to end this war. We're winning battles, but we're losing the overall conflict. We can't keep trading lives like this. Wu entered, followed by a group of alien fighters. They were Vorathi rebels who had escaped their integration center and joined the coalition. Their crystalline bodies showed damage from recent combat, cracks and chips that glowed faintly. Commander Day, said the lead Vorathi. It was Sale, the one who had tried to warn Hana so long ago. I bring news from my people. We have discovered something important about the Council's power structure. Sale activated a holographic display showing the Council's capital world, a massive planet at the center of their empire. The Council rules through information control. They maintain their power by controlling what species know about each other and about the Council itself. But their entire communication network runs through central hubs on the capital world. If we could access those hubs and broadcast the truth, we could turn the entire galaxy against them, Tay finished. Every species they've lied to, every population they've manipulated, they'd all see what the Council really is. It's impossible, Sung said flatly. The capital world has defenses that make Earths look like toys. We don't have the military strength to breach them. We don't need military strength, Sale replied. We need infiltration. A small team could enter the capital during a council assembly, when security is focused on the delegates rather than the communication systems. Day studied the holographic display. It was insane. It was probably suicide. It was also their best chance at ending the war. Start planning the operation, he ordered. I want every detail worked out. We get one shot at this. Meanwhile, on a distant world, Hana worked to organize the prisoners in her integration center. The facility held 10,000 beings from a dozen different species, all in various stages of the Council's integration process. The newer prisoners still had fight in them. The older ones were hollow shells, their spirits broken by years of psychological manipulation. Hana had been there for 8 months, but she refused to break. She organized secret resistance cells among the prisoners. They sabotaged production quotas, spread information about the rebellion, and prepared for the day when liberation would come. A young human named Nari had been captured during a raid on a council supply depot. She arrived at the integration center beaten but unbroken. Hana found her in the medical ward recovering from interrogation. You're Ambassador Hana, Nari said, recognizing her immediately. I flew in the Battle of Luna. I thought you were dead. Not yet, Hana replied. How bad is it out there? Bad, but we're still fighting. Commander Day leads the coalition now. We've freed 18 worlds so far. Lost 12 to council counterattacks. It's bloody, but we're not giving up. Hana felt pride and grief in equal measure. Humanity was still resisting, but the cost was terrible. She wondered how many had died since she was captured. She wondered if Earth still stood. There's talk of a big operation, Nari continued quietly. Something that could change everything. I don't know the details, but it involves hitting the council capital. Then we need to be ready, Hana said. If they're planning something that big, they might try to free the integration centers as part of it. We need to make sure the prisoners here can fight when the time comes. Back at the Coalition Command Center, the planning for the capital infiltration took shape. It would be a small team, no more than 8 people. They would use a captured council ship to approach the capital during the Grand Assembly, when all 12 elder species gathered to discuss the war. Day would lead the team personally. Wu would handle security and combat. Jin would manage the technical aspects of accessing the communication network. Nari, the pilot who had first discovered the Council's true intentions, would fly them in. 4 more specialists rounded out the team. A Vorathi data expert, a Nelm telepath who had defected to the Coalition, and 2 human soldiers. The plan was simple in concept but terrifyingly difficult in execution. They would dock at the station, infiltrate the communication hub, upload every piece of evidence about the Council's crimes, and broadcast it across the entire galaxy. Then they would escape before security could respond. Nobody believed they would survive, but everyone agreed it was necessary. Tay, who would stay behind to coordinate coalition forces, pulled Day aside before the mission briefing. I've been analyzing the Council's response patterns. They're getting more brutal, more desperate. I think they're considering something extreme. Like what? like destroying Earth entirely. If they can't integrate us, they might decide to make an example of us. Send a message to every other species that resistance leads to extinction. Day felt cold dread. Can they do that? Destroy an entire planet? They have the weapons. Whether they'll actually use them depends on how desperate they get. But Day, if this mission fails, I think they will. They need to restore their reputation for invincibility. What better way than to annihilate the species that defied them? The weight of that knowledge settled on Day's shoulders. This mission wasn't just about winning the war anymore. It was about preventing genocide. General Sung transformed Earth into a fortress while the infiltration team prepared. Every asteroid in the solar system was armed. Every colony became a military base. Every citizen received basic combat training. If the Council came for Earth, humanity would make them pay for every meter of space. The day before the mission, Day recorded a message to be broadcast to all coalition forces if the team didn't return. He sat alone in a small room, staring at the camera, trying to find words that mattered. To everyone fighting for freedom, he began. If you're hearing this, it means our mission failed and I'm probably dead. But that doesn't mean the fight is over. The Council wants you to believe they're inevitable, that resistance is futile, that you should accept their rule and live in comfortable chains. He paused, thinking about everything that had happened since first contact. The lies, the betrayal, the terrible cost of resistance. But here's the truth they don't want you to know. They're not invincible. We've proven that. Every battle we've won, every world we've freed, every day we continue to exist despite their power. All of it proves they can be beaten. They've ruled the galaxy for thousands of years, but their empire is built on fear and lies. Take away the fear and expose the lies, and it collapses. Day leaned forward, his expression intense. So keep fighting, not because victory is certain, but because submission is worse than death. The Council offers peace, comfort, and safety in exchange for your freedom. Don't take that deal. Die free rather than live as slaves. Future generations will remember that we had a choice, and we chose to fight. He ended the recording, hoping it would never need to be broadcast. The infiltration team gathered in the hangar where their captured Council ship waited. It was a Krell transport vessel, seized during the Battle of Luna. Jin's team had worked for weeks to make it look authentic, repairing damage and installing fake identification codes. Day addressed his team one final time. We all know this is probably a one-way trip. Nobody will blame you if you want to back out now. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. They had all made their choice. Then let's go show the Council what happens when they underestimate humanity, Day said. The ship launched, accelerating toward the Council capital. It would take 5 days to reach their destination. 5 days to prepare. The Council capital world was called Sovereignty. It orbited a blue giant star and held a population of 3 billion beings from all 12 elder species. The planet was a monument to the Council's power. Massive cities built over thousands of years, defensive platforms that could destroy fleets, and a culture that believed absolutely in their right to rule the galaxy. Day's team approached in their captured Krell transport, trying to look like just another supply ship. Nari kept her hand steady on the controls despite the sweat on her forehead. One wrong move, one suspicious scan, and they would be destroyed before they got within weapons range of the planet. Council traffic control is hailing us, said the Nelm defector, whose name was Ren. They're asking for identification codes. Send the codes Jin prepared, Day ordered. And Ren, use your telepathy to project calm confidence. Make them feel like everything is normal. The minutes crawled by while traffic control processed their request. Every second felt like an hour. Finally, clearance came through. They were directed to dock at Station 7, a cargo facility on the orbital ring. We're in, Nari said quietly. Phase 1 complete. The hard part was just beginning. They docked without incident. The team split into 2 groups. Day, Wu, Jin, and Ren would infiltrate the communication hub. Nari and the other 3 would secure their escape route and prepare the ship for a very fast departure. The station was enormous and crowded. Thousands of beings moved through its corridors. Workers, traders, bureaucrats, all serving the Council's vast empire. Nobody gave the team a second glance. They looked like ordinary maintenance workers in stolen uniforms. Jin had mapped the route to the communication hub using stolen schematics. It required passing through 3 security checkpoints and taking service corridors that were rarely used. The journey took an hour. every moment filled with tension. At the first checkpoint, a Vorathi guard scanned their credentials. Ren used his telepathy to make the guard feel satisfied with what he saw. They passed through. The second checkpoint was automated. Jin's fake credentials worked perfectly. They passed through. The third checkpoint had a Krell guard who looked at them with all 6 eyes and asked detailed questions about their assignment. Ren projected calm. Jin answered smoothly. Wu kept his hand near his concealed weapon. The moment stretched dangerously long. Then the guard waved them through, already bored with the interaction. They reached the communication hub, a massive chamber filled with quantum computing systems that managed data for the entire Council Empire. Only a few technicians were present, and none paid attention to the maintenance crew entering through a side door. Jin went to work immediately, connecting his custom-built interface to the Council's network. I'm in. Uploading the data package now. This will take about 10 minutes. We don't have 10 minutes if someone notices what you're doing, Wu said, watching the doors. Then make sure nobody notices, Jin replied, not looking up from his work. The data package contained everything. Video evidence of integration centers, testimony from survivors of the 42 conquered species, Council communications discussing resource extraction and population management, scientific analyses of Nell mind control techniques, battle footage from Luna, personal statements from resistance leaders across the galaxy. Most importantly, it contained the complete list of lies the Council had told every species in the galaxy. The promises they had made and broken, the treaties they had violated, the civilizations they had erased. In the Grand Assembly Hall, the 12 Council elders gathered with their advisors. The Krell elder who had threatened Hana spoke to the assembled representatives. The human problem has reached critical levels. Their resistance has inspired rebellion across 18 sectors. We can no longer contain this through traditional integration methods. I propose we demonstrate our power decisively. Destroy the human homeworld. Send a message to every species that defiance leads to extinction. There was murmuring among the delegates. Some looked uncomfortable with such extreme measures, but most nodded in agreement. The Council had ruled for so long that they had forgotten how to show mercy. They only understood power. The motion is proposed, the lead elder said. We will vote after hearing from all representatives. They had no idea that their communication network had just been compromised. Jin's fingers flew across his interface. Upload at 70%. Almost there. Then alarms began screaming throughout the station. Red lights flashed. Automated security systems activated. A Vorathi technician had noticed the unauthorized data transfer and triggered the alert. We're blown, Wu shouted. How long do you need? 2 minutes, Jin replied. Then we hold for 2 minutes. Security forces poured into the communication hub. Wu opened fire with his stolen energy weapon, dropping the first 3 guards. The rest took cover and returned fire. Energy bolts scorched the air, destroying computer terminals and setting fires. Ren used his telepathy to create confusion among the guards, making them see threats that weren't there. It bought precious seconds. Day pulled Jin behind a console for cover, protecting the engineer while he completed the upload. 95%, Jin said through gritted teeth. Almost there. A massive explosion rocked the hub. Council forces had brought heavy weapons. Part of the ceiling collapsed. Ren was hit by falling debris, his body crushed. He died instantly, but his last telepathic projection gave the guards a moment of paralyzing fear. Upload complete, Jin shouted. Broadcasting now. He activated the final protocol. Every communication channel in the galaxy suddenly carried the Coalition's message. Every screen, every holographic display, every audio system. All of them showed the truth about the Council. In the Grand Assembly Hall, the elders watched in horror as their own displays betrayed them. Video played of integration centers, of enslaved populations, of the 42 species they had erased. The evidence was undeniable and uneditable. Across the galaxy, billions of beings saw the truth for the first time. Species that had trusted the Council felt betrayal. Species that had been conquered saw that they weren't alone. Species that had cooperated out of fear realized the Council was vulnerable. Time to go, Wu yelled, laying down covering fire as they retreated. Jin grabbed his equipment and ran. Day took point, shooting anything that moved in their path. They fought their way back through the corridors, leaving bodies behind them. More guards kept coming. The station was going into lockdown. They had minutes before escape became impossible. Nari had the ship ready when they arrived, engines hot and weapons armed. But the hangar was filled with security forces. Breaking through would require a sacrifice. Go, Wu shouted to Day and Jin. Get to the ship. I'll clear a path. Wu, no, Dee started. That's an order, Commander. This mission only matters if someone survives to see what happens next. Wu charged the security line, firing both weapons. He was hit almost immediately, but his assault created enough chaos for Day and Jin to reach the ship. They ran up the boarding ramp as Nari started the launch sequence. Jin was hit in the back as he reached the ship. He fell, blood spreading across his uniform. Day dragged him inside as energy bolts slammed into the ship's hull. The ramp closed. Nari launched before they were even secured. The ship blasted out of the hangar, taking fire from every direction. Warning alarm screamed. Hull breaches detected. Engine damage. Weapons offline. They were falling apart. Hang on, Nari shouted, throwing the ship into a wild, evasive pattern. She flew like a demon, dancing between orbital platforms and outgoing fire. Council ships gave chase, but Nari had learned every dirty flying trick during the months of war. Jin died before they cleared orbit. He smiled at Day with his last breath. Did we do it? Did it work? It worked, Day assured him. The whole galaxy knows now. Jin nodded and went still. The escape from Sovereignty took 4 hours and cost them 3 more team members. Only Day, Nari, and 1 human soldier made it out alive. Their ship was barely functioning, held together by emergency patches and desperate engineering. But they had succeeded. The truth was out. The galaxy exploded into revolution. On 42 worlds, enslaved populations rose up against their overseers. Species that had been erased from history reclaimed their identities. The Council's member states turned on each other, each trying to deny responsibility for the atrocities. The integration center where Hana was held became a battlefield. Council guards tried to suppress the prisoners, but they were vastly outnumbered. Hana led the revolt, using improvised weapons and tactics learned from months of secret preparation. When coalition forces arrived to liberate the center, they found the prisoners had already freed themselves. Hana stood in the ruins of the facility, covered in blood and exhaustion, but alive and unbroken. The Council's empire collapsed over the next 6 months. Not through military defeat, but through political disintegration. The elder species lost their authority. Their fleets were abandoned or defected to the coalition. Their worlds were isolated by rebellions they could no longer control. The war ended not with a grand battle, but with a whimper. The Council simply ceased to exist as the species that had once ruled the galaxy retreated to their home territories, diminished and afraid. Day returned to Earth to find it scarred but standing.